Simply put, outsourcing is hiring someone else to do the work or help you with part of a client assignment instead of doing all of it yourself. Outsourcing has become one of the main drivers of economic development. Countries like India and the Philippines have benefited from outsourcing. But can other countries in the Western Balkans do better to drive a more inclusive economic development? For this episode, I'm pleased to welcome Timo Stegelmann, who is Deputy Managing Director at the development organization Hilfe zu Selbsthilfe, which is our partner at ReEconomy. Timothy Sparkman, who is Managing Partner at the Canopy Lab. Vesna Purić, who is COO at CORTEX, which is ICT cluster for innovations, education, and technology development in Montenegro. And Shllaku, who is my colleague at ReEconomy, the regional manager for the Western Balkans. The Western Balkans have collectively become one of the most attractive locations for outsourcing, making them competitive in the ICT BPO sector. Timo, do you think there is competitive advantage?
The region of Southeast Europe has actually a lot of competitive advantages. It has a very good infrastructure, not only the logistic infrastructure for usual business, but also actually for the communication sector, because the internet is actually available in all the areas. A very good network is accessible not only in the companies and not only in the central cities, but also in the smaller cities in the urban areas. This is very good. Then you have a very good educated people there. They're very well educated, and they're also multilingual, which is also an advantage, like especially the youth. I mean, they're all speaking another foreign language, if it's German or if it's English or Italian in Albania a lot. Yeah, it's different, but it is a very good thing. And also, that's also one of the things which I always see, women are very well educated, young women, and this is encouraging me always of the positive things. And another key advantage is also, this is geographically, I mean, it's Central European time. So if you're working with Europe, with companies in Europe, I mean, it's much easier.
Do you think there's potential, Tim?
I think there's huge potential. And actually, I think that is one of the greatest opportunities that the Western Balkan has in terms of its ability to create more knowledge-intensive sectors in the economy. I think if you're talking about outsourcing of ICT related services, and so from software development to like a software as a service provision to business process outsourcing, which is at the less sophisticated end, but still in that area. I think these are areas that offer opportunities for people who are willing to invest in higher skills to get a higher quality employment, but they're also areas that contribute to the sophistication of the economy more broadly. So, if you have a thriving sector of smart, like enterprise resource planning software developers, ERP developers, right? They not only are able to serve the global market for those services, but they're able to turn and serve the agricultural sector of Western Balkan countries. And improve their performance in terms of the ability to institute traceability systems, comply with global gap, things like that. They're able to improve the performance of tourism industries, right, by offering a variety of different solutions that make it easier for people to book, pay for, track, change reservations, etc. And so I see them not only as drivers of economic growth in general, but also as enablers of improved sophistication of other sectors in the region over time.
Could you tell us what makes the Western Balkans one of the most attractive locations for outsourcing? What are some of the features, Vesna?
Okay, well, today's business solutions are complex and often require highly skilled help. And hiring in-house can be extremely expensive. I have found some data that more than 60% of the companies that outsource business services do so in Europe. And the Balkan countries, following the examples of their successful neighbors, are emerging as a promising destination for the companies to outsource their services. And it is extremely popular to outsource business services because the companies are seeking for quality and not the quantity. Also, our successful neighbors, Eastern Europe, they are known as a best place where you can find good programmers all the globe. They have profound expertise, attractive salaries, and a big number of experienced and knowledgeable software developers. But what makes Western Balkans a great choice for the outsourcing? So there are many of features or advantages. First, I would like to mention that Western Balkans have skilled talent pool of good engineers and software developers and very competitive labor. This is due to a good education, which can be better, I agree, but in the education, not only the academic institutions are involved, but also the IT companies within the countries. So they're pushing a lot in order to have educated IT developers. Also, what is additional advantage is that in Western Balkans, people are multilingualists, meaning that they are very good at English, but also in all other languages, and because of the ethnical mixed population. So that can be very attractive for the businesses who wants to outsource their services. One of the other languages are French or German. So those are the languages that you can choose in your primary school or high school. So it is like mandatory due to your education. What is also beneficial are the time zones. So time zones in Western Balkans is similar as the time zone in Europe. So it is just like plus 1 or 2 hours additional, which means that companies can communicate with us. We have the same time reference, and that is very beneficial because in case any problem emerge, so you can easily solve it.
As mentioned by Vesna, Timo, and Tim, some of the attractive features of the Western Balkans include competitive labor and business operating costs, proximity to most major clients in core European countries, and good quality internet is available across most of the region. Also, the region has the youngest population in Europe and is multilingual. However, these potentials were not adequate and systematically tapped. But before we continue talking about the constraints, I would like to use this intermission to invite our special guest from the RisiAlbania Project of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation in Albania, component lead in private sector development, Clara Garcia Parra. Clara, could you tell us briefly what your project does in the BPO sector?
So in Albania, the BPO sector employs around 25,000 people, and many of them are young. So when RISI started looking at the industry some 7 years ago, we noticed that for historical reasons, the BPO sector was over-reliant on the Italian market. Companies offered limited or basic services, such as telemarketing, and they seemed to want to compete on price by delivering low value and labor-intensive services. And as you know, if you compare the size of Albania to the large global competitors such as India or the Philippines, this was very unsustainable in the long term. RISI then saw that the BPO had huge potential to be an attractive employer for young graduates who enter the labor market every year with a diverse set of skills. So the project strategy for the sector is built around 3 main objectives. First, it is to support the industry to diversify its clients. Second, it is to support companies to attract investments and sell higher value services. And third, it is to improve the reputation of the sector as an attractive employer for young people. In order to achieve this, some of our interventions revolve around strengthening sector association capacities to attract investments, or for example, supporting companies to enter new markets, then promoting replication. And for these, we partner with a diverse set of stakeholders, such as sector associations, companies, and public institutions. We have seen very interesting signs of systemic change in the market. For example, mechanisms are in place for associations to facilitate industry coordination, and the public and the private sector collaborate better for investment promotion. This is leading to a better operating environment for firms, which means that the country is able to attract more investments and firms are diversifying their client base. In the end, all of this results in better quality jobs for young women and men, which is what we want. Interestingly, COVID has been a wake-up call for many companies in the country because they are realizing the importance of increasing the resilience by diversifying their clients and their services. We are very excited about what's to come in the BPO sector in Albania and hope we will collaborate with ReEconomy.
What do you think are the problems that need to be tackled, Timo?
But of course, also where there are positive things, there are negative things. And there are problems. Main problem is it's all very fragmented and it's not really a coordinated approach of these services which are available there. And transparency is an issue, which is in South Europe also a big problem. And then the young people, often they think only the future is abroad. So then there's a brain drain of people there. Why are they thinking that only the future is abroad? Is also a little bit politically oriented. I mean, if you have the chambers of commerce and other political networks and business networks, they're sometimes living still in an old-fashioned way and not really seeing the potential in the ICT sector. And there are a lot of potentials there, especially for young people. And that's not visible sometimes for the government, or the government does not want, the governments do not want to see that. So there's certain reform processes in things, but there also, I see positive things, because you see sometimes in certain areas where actually it's a positive development in the area, especially when young people come into power and they want to move something. I mean, like you see that in Kosovo, there are certain movements there in certain areas. It's just like sometimes frustrating, and this I can understand for young people, that sometimes it goes backwards again. So there are positive and negative things, but I think that there is really a big potential, and it needs to be tackled. That's on the governmental level, on the Chamber of Commerce level, also with the big companies. And the companies are seeing it more because they're seeing it economically. They want to make a profit. So they identified the sector more and more. Now, what is the thing where we as a non-governmental organization or others can get into it is a network to the rural areas, because there are the potential young people. Migration is not only abroad. Migration is also something which is happening internally. And it's not good if all the well-educated people are going to Pristina or go in Kosovo or to Belgrade or to Sarajevo, or always only to the capital cities or to the bigger cities. They have to. They can stay at home and work from there and stay in their areas, and not only doing in the rural areas agricultural things, agricultural development, which was done a lot. Which is also a potential of the region, which should also be staying like this. But the information communication technology sector and the young people, they are so efficient in this, and this can be really used, and it's a real big potential, which is not yet used as it could be.
What do you think, Tim? What are the problems that need to be tackled?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of problems, I think. One of the biggest problems is the lack of qualified personnel. I think you could train developers in a variety of different programming languages for several years and never quite meet demand. Is one thing. So that's part of the problem. Is just the lack of capacity to be able to meet the growth opportunities that a lot of firms have. But there are myriad other challenges. You know, if the head of a smart up and coming software company can't just easily hop on a plane and go to Germany and have a, you know, a sales trip, and has to do the vast majority of sales networking online, that's another challenge, right? So the visa issues that Kosovo has obviously play a role. Often brain drain comes up as a big problem. I don't really see that as much of a problem because I think there are possibly too many people anyway in the area. I mean, like Kosovo, for example, is like a captive labor pool that's just dying to get out. It would take, I ran like just back of the envelope figures of a couple years ago when I was living in Pristina, and I think I calculated that under the current rate of job creation, it would take 17 years to create jobs for the existing stock of unemployed, and not even considering the pipeline of young people who were going to be coming out of school in the first place. So I don't see how a broad improvement of standard of living can be achieved without significant emigration. But that's not a popular topic of discussion in donor circles, so I generally keep that to myself. Another thing has to do with, you know, if you look at the BPO sector, if you look at business process outsourcing, for example, a lack of sufficient regulatory structure, and then a lack of enforcement makes it easy for you know, sort of illegal or kind of gray market operators to you know, pursue business models that aren't strictly legal and aren't strictly beneficial to the individuals they're served. So you know, I think the BPO sector in the Western Balkans is kind of the Wild West. You have a few big operators and then, you know, a lot of small operators who are, you know, doing, you know, building legitimate businesses, but then you have a few other people who are just running like stock pump and dump schemes, trying to cheat old German ladies out of their pensions via dubious like sales, you know, online marketing strategies and things like that. And that threatens the reputation of the industry globally. Which is, you know, a disincentive to investment in the area. So I think there are a lot of challenges, but there's huge promise as well. You have a young, technologically savvy population. They're incredibly multilingual. That, you know, everybody around there speaks, you know, not everybody, but there's a significant portion of the population that speaks quite a few languages, especially, you know, as an American, right? They say if you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 1 language, you must be from America. And so that's a significant opportunity. There, you know, there's a large diaspora with strong connections to their home countries around Europe and even over into America, and that creates you know, networking opportunities for people to be able to tap new markets and in new sources of capital. You know, there's smart software shops in Pristina that have really strong connections to capital sources in New York City, and that doesn't get talked about enough, I think. So there are a lot of things in place, a lot of factors in place that are conducive to the growth of these sectors, but they, you know, they retain their share of significant challenges.
What do you think are the problems that the potential hasn't been adequately and systematically tapped? And in your opinion, Vesna, what is a way out of this?
Okay, first of all, we had like limited access to foreign markets, meaning that we are not European Union countries. And it was very difficult to find or acquire new clients. But due to this COVID situation from last year, the things had significantly changed in a way that we acquired more clients due to lack of local location and distance. So everything is online. So businesses now were more focused on the internet and finding where to outsource their business services. And I think this situation slightly improved our chances to go on the foreign market. I would also like to mention that lack of ICT clusters might be a problem. There is not so much now it is emerging, but there is not so much ICT clusters who are very active and profound in order to allow companies to go to the export market. And I think the main goal or objective of these associations is to make a collaboration between the industry actors and to allow them to create some synergy effect and to go together on the market and to create some additional value, and also to brand the region as a whole. So to stimulate the competitiveness of the private sector enterprises, and to create a critical mass and to position countries of Western Balkans on the map of Europe as a countries that has highly professional IT developers and employees. Also, on the other hand, the lack maybe of governmental support. So if the country is not digitalized, it means that it doesn't support digitalization. So it needs to be present on their own example that we are going into this direction. The government also needs to define the budget for research and development in IT technology and also other technologies which are needed in order to make a progress in the IT industry. And maybe it is a lack that IT is still not yet recognized as a strategic pillar of the economy development. And also what the other businesses are taking into consideration when they are choosing where to outsource their servicing is the political stability, communication and regulations. And I think still we have some not so clear brand image that we are good countries with good political stability. I think that the media who is creating this image. But overall, I hope that IT sector will be dominant and it will highlight its skills in order to attract the businesses above all these factors that can be problematic.
In your opinion, Timo, how has the pandemic affected the ICT BPO sector in the Western Balkans? Does the pandemic situation create opportunities for the region to become a nearshoring mecca?
Actually, yeah, you were mentioning it. There are a lot of opportunities now because actually, of course, the pandemic is affecting everywhere the economy, not only in the Western Balkans, also in other countries. But the advantage there is, as I mentioned before, in the network, the information technology possibilities is there because they can actually work from home. And that's a key advantage. You have internet, you have the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure. Most of the people which are involved in this have a laptop, have a computer at home, and they have the network. They don't have to go to the office to work there. I mean, we are using it as well as a non-governmental organization. We are letting people work from home, and they're not all coming from the capital cities. I mean, we have a network of offices, so we let them work from their area, which is perfectly possible because sometimes they even have better internet at home than they have actually in the companies. So this is a key advantage there, that complete processes sometimes can be outsourced. Of course, you have things which are happening on the field, which are production and stuff like that. But talking about the communication technology sector, programming and web pages, etc., and also complete processes. Complete business processes can sometimes be outsourced, especially when it comes to technology in developing programs and stuff like this. So the area has a key advantage towards actually other areas now. And yes, there is an effect, but I think also there's a positive effect because now this infrastructure is there and has to be used. Problem is sometimes more the networking, like marketing together. And there we have to tackle this and have to see how can one person alone can sometimes not program something. So sometimes you need a network of people who's doing this. Building up associations and stuff like this. Associations are a good thing, but also there you have to be careful in Southeast Europe because it's always have sometimes a negative effect. that people think about associations a bit like in socialistic times. And there you have to also train the people and also or explain that this is actually not what is meant there, that this is not a socialistic association in this sense. So that's more that they are working together, because together they can actually do much more services. And together, actually, they can actually take the bigger jobs and the bigger thing. Of course, there has to be a leader, has to be somebody who is actually leading this association, but it has to be fair and a transparent way. And there we try to come in, trying to put things together, trying to bring people together, trying to adopt trainings to make it better fit to the companies, involving directly also the businesses and trying to bring them together. And if you're doing it as a pilot and the economy and the companies are seeing the key advantages, also the key advantages of this area, being with this lot of languages, the people speaking, young, motivated persons, and then you can bring it forward. And then they see it as a part, hey, it's functioning, and then they can continue financing this. And that is a nice thing about the ReEconomy project, to actually bring people together and then also to show through this pilot activity, hey, it's functioning. So businesses come and do it. And then also I think we can convince the local governments, and there are young people in this, some chambers of commerce, and that people also trust again into their political leaders. It's a long process, but I mean, I'm positive thinking, I'm not giving up. And I think together we can achieve more. Actually, we as HELP have this 25 years of HELP in Southeast Europe under the motto, Together for Tomorrow. And that's exactly what we're also trying to do with this project, is Together for Tomorrow, actually to create something and to give the people a possibility. People don't want to leave their homes. People like to stay in their region, like to stay with their families. And they have to get the possibility. And this is exactly now, the pandemic can have a negative aspect. It has definitely. Also for everybody personally, you have to stay more with your family, you stay more at home, but it can be positive. And let's use it efficiently and positive, bringing people together, let them work from home, and let it use as a chance so that now they are actually showing to companies, hey, there's a knowledge actually here in Europe, use it, and let's go forward.
Helvetas has partnered with the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency to facilitate a regional inclusive economic development program called ReEconomy in 12 countries in Eastern Europe, South Caucasus, and the Western Balkans. One pilot that the program facilitates is addressing constraints in the ICT BPO sector in the Western Balkans. Lea, could you tell us what is ReEconomy doing?
So regarding the ICT and the BPO sector, which we heard a lot from our three previous speakers, the ReEconomy program is starting a pilot in the Western Balkans. It will cover all 6 countries. And basically it somehow, the idea to start working on ICT and BPO is not new to Helvetas, because we have our in-country programs, such as in Albania, in Kosovo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that were working for quite a few years now on ICT and the BPO sector. So for ReEconomy, we already had some learnings from our in-country offices, and we have basically, we were familiar with the opportunities that the Western Balkans has to offer. So these opportunities were, I'm not going to go in details because we already heard Timothy and Timo explain what are those when it comes to the Western Balkans. And then we looked at it and we saw a good opportunity also relating to the COVID-19 crisis, that we do acknowledge that now the Western Balkans has a good momentum to start and position itself as a region to being a good opportunity for nearshoring initiatives, also contracts. And how we have gone about designing our pilot, which is being also implemented by HELP, it's through addressing the key constraints. We've heard also our speakers talking about some of the main constraints, and the ones that our pilot considers are on the 3 working streams that ReEconomy also has. So the constraint of skilled workforce. So we do acknowledge that the Western Balkans, there are a considerable number of young people who also speak foreign languages. However, we want to have more value on the work that we want the young people to be engaged in the ICT or the BPO sector. So therefore, we are looking to collaborating with market actors who are offering relevant skills that are being demanded by the private sector and also by the foreign companies who are looking into expanding in the Western Balkans. We also are addressing the constraint that we see the markets, especially the micro and small enterprises, are not really digitalized. So we're also looking into from the perspective of what is the supply. So what are the support services, the business support services that will help such companies to digitalize? And we're looking into what are the innovations currently in the Western Balkan market, so and helping them expand from one country to the other. As I've explained in the beginning, is that we also have this knowledge from other Helvetas projects that have been crucial on providing us these opportunities when it comes to successful business support services from countries in the Western Balkans. But the vision of our pilot is we're trying to position, we would want to see the Western Balkans being positioned as a region and being promoted as a region, rather than just helping one country attract more investment. Because if we look at it from country's perspective, we see that the market is thin. And we would need more the countries or the private sector from these countries to start collaborating into attracting bigger contracts. And in order to do this, the constraint is that currently the associations or the clusters, the business clusters, are not really communicating to or sharing information to a point that we would want to see. So that the market basically takes the advantage of having that information and linkages and creating this market linkages, where one company, let's say from Serbia, would be collaborating with another country in Albania when it comes to joining forces and attracting bigger investments and bigger contracts. So we're also working on the 3rd work stream, so it's advocacy and helping basically building capacities of clusters and associations into being able to put the Western Balkans into the map.
All right, thank you for watching another round of Inclusive Plug powered by ReEconomy. We talked about some of the positive features and the competitive advantage of the Western Balkans in the ICT BPO sector, including some of the constraints and ReEconomy's value addition. Please let us know in the comment section whether you agree or disagree with the ideas expressed by our guests. We have interesting topics coming up, so stay tuned and hit the subscribe button. This was Sabine, a communication manager at ReEconomy, a program of the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency implemented by Helvetas in 12 countries in Eastern Europe, South Caucasus, and the Western Balkans. Thank you for tuning in and see you soon.